Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Transfer Market Metrics by Anfield Index. We're talking about transfers. January is open, but ultimately we're doing a little bit of this to distract us from other things because in just over 3 hours, me and Bart will be trying not to shed as Liverpool play at Nottingham Forest, hopefully in the biggest game of the season. And we all know what it could mean, ladies and gents. But nervous for tonight? How are we feeling?
Oh, yeah, nervous. It's a huge game. I think the next five, to be honest with you, Si was mentioning in UP chat that I think the next five is the league, to be honest with you. Arsenal's fixtures, they got Tottenham, City and Villa, I think, in the next five. We've got Brentford, Bournemouth and Forest. I think, whoever comes out of that unscathed, I think is probably going to be in the box seat because you'll be ticking into late 20s games. So you're getting near not far off 10 games to go. Do you know what I mean? This next 5 run of games is absolutely, if we can get anywhere near max points, I'll be absolutely happy. It starts tonight. We have to get a win tonight.
Yeah, a win does feel massive. It does feel like we break the spirit of other clubs. But before that, ladies and gents, we have got 3 players to give you. Now, this is episode 9 of Transfer Market Metrics. I'm sure you know how it works. However, not everyone does, because I got a few messages today saying, can you profile this player? Can you profile that player? Can you give this to Bart? In a word, no. As we always say on Transfer Market Metrics, we only profile players we've had information there's links on. That's why there's no Messi, there's no Haalands on this. It's players that we know or we've had information on Liverpool have been linked with. That's why they come onto TMM in the first place. And this is an interesting name, this Bart. And I haven't read your body language on this because when I ask you about this boy, Jamie Bynoe-Gittens, you kind of give me a bit of a kind of like a Gattuso, sometimes good, sometimes that type of one. However, this lad is shining for Borussia Dortmund in the Bundesliga, a good league. He's English, he's young. There's the eye test, and I'm not pretending either of us are avid Bundesliga watchers, but the games I've seen him, there's been moments, it's fair to say. Are you about to wipe out people's dreams around Bynoe-Gittens? Let's see.
No, I mean, let's start off at the top here. He's 20. He's surprisingly English. I mean, I shouldn't, if you know anything, watch it. But I'm just saying to you, he's a kid who's gone to Germany to play football, a bit like Sancho did, yeah. So a bit like Bellingham did. So it can be a good breeding ground for youth players to go and develop the trade before they come back to the Premier League. So he's played just short of 1,500 minutes, decent amount. If we scroll, we'll go to the comparison in a minute, but if we look at things like, so his season stats for shooting. So we've been talking a lot about shot volume, how many shots you take a game. Mo's up about 5, Darwin's struggling to get 2, those kind of things. So his shots around this season, 2.3 per 90. Last couple of seasons, he's hit 4 and 3.6. So it's come down over the period of time, but that could be some. His XG's actually stayed fairly consistent, actually, even though he's taken a shot less this season. So maybe taking better shots, which is good. So shot selection could be improving over time. If we look at sort of shot created, goal and shot created actions, always good to look at. So he's got something like shot creating actions 37 this season. If we talk about per 90, he's at 3T2. So that's 3.5, 3.9, 3T2. So it's fair to say that's around 3 a game. Yeah, shot creating action. Yeah, that's not bad. Goal creating actions 0.7, 0.7. So again, that's come down a bit from maybe his first couple of seasons, but where he is now, 0.7 going forward. So there's some good things to like. Okay, in the pure stats, we would look at a trend over a few years. He did have some good numbers in his first season, second season. Sorry, he only played 533 minutes, so it's sort of a bit of a stop-in. Now he's got to become more regular, playing about 1,000 minutes now in the league going forward. He's sort of got a consistent baseline level, which is still not bad. If we look at his percentiles, as we normally do before we go into some of the more advanced stats. Defensively, okay, so tackles, he's his highest one at 73 percentile. That indicates that he's probably more of a Diaz than a Cody wide forwards. Cody would typically have interception blocks as the highest and low on tackles. Clearances and errors one, not a big deal. As I said, we both don't watch Dortmund play a lot, but that kind of suggests he's not involved in a lot of maybe defensive clearances, those kind of things. So yeah, in the box, set plays sort of setting up. So yeah, that's not bad. We might expect a little bit more, but there we go. In terms of what does he do between the boxes? So this here suggests to me he's a carrier. So he's a guy like Diaz. He's 94th, 98th percentile for 94th percentile for progressive carries. That's very exceptional. Per 90, 6.3 per 90, 6.13 per 90. Take-ons, 98th percentile. Touches in the attacking box, 82nd percentile. So these are drive into the area, carry the ball, again, 20% closer to goal. That's what progressive is, into the box to get a touch in there. So that's good. He's low in terms of receiving that progressive pass. So again, that probably suggests when he's receiving the ball, he's already in the final third. He's not lower in the middle third and carrying it into the final third. Passing, 70%. So you can look at that two ways. You can look at it more of a takes a risk for the pass, or you could take it as he's not looking, because forwards generally do take risk for the pass. That's higher than most. He doesn't attempt a lot of passes. So it's a dribble. So guys just said there he's more Mane and Diaz. It's probably true. Mane was the way forward to get a shot off. So in terms of though, what does he do in that part of the in the box? Non-penalty goals, he's an 84th percentile. So that's okay. So let's look at what's he doing there in terms of shots. He's only at 77th percentile for shots. So it's 2.9 again, which we looked at in the Bundesliga. It dropped off a bit from his high of over 3. So this is in the last year. So that's kind of suggesting he's taking good shots, which is why he's got a high non-penalty XG, but he's not taking the volume to be in the really high percentage of where your likes of Mo would be. I mean, Mo's elite, but I'm just saying to you where we're looking at.
Yeah.
If we were looking at the kid last night, the Greek, he was in extremely high percentile for shot volume, but then he wouldn't be around for the rest. So shot creating actions, he's actually in 36th percentile. So that's a lower. He's more of not a curator. He wants to be to receive the ball high, do something, get a shot off, maybe a high quality shot. You could read that from those percentiles. If we look at, he's right footed. I think I've read that right. Yeah. So you can play on the left or the right. Comparing him to Mo, probably a bit unfair. It's not quite the same profile. If we look at how we compare him, still got Diaz around here somewhere. Because we generally invert our there we go. We generally invert our wingers. So we play the left footed on the right and the right foot on the left. So here there's Diaz is still profiling more, but remember Diaz is 8 years, he's senior. It's a different kind of profile. So I think this profile is interesting. There's a bit more off-ball work, as we said, than Diaz. He's carrying the ball in a little bit better than Diaz this season, but in terms of passes, he's not up to the level of Diaz. So, there is some things to like in him. Clearly, the data guys seem to like that. This is just for the outside looking in. He doesn't profile like either of our kind of wingers. If I was looking at, I've got Cody on here. Yes, I do. Yeah, he doesn't really. It'd be really hard to find a profile where he looks similar to any of our 3 starting wide players. So that's interesting that we're looking at a player that's got a different profile. If we look at some of the bits that I produce, we go up a bit. So this is Dortmund in an attacking sense. He's interesting with Dortmund. They play a similar shape to us. So the you would see we attack the U, and then we have 2 players in a kind of a 10 position. So in terms of his adaptability to come and play with us, that could be interesting. That could be a conversion that they've seen and gone, you're already taking up positions we're going to ask you to do. Because he's not involved that much in build-up from stats, you can see here receiving a pass. What's that, about 5 passes every 15 minutes? So he's on the end to try and create. Typically, when they've been dominant here, he's got a lot more touches and passes. But he's in. So this is low pass chain. So he's involved in 1 to 5. So that's a counter, maybe along the ball. And that marries up with the pass chain length. So he's involved in very low. So yeah, it's in this game he's played on the left here. So he's played progressive passes into the left half space, which is good. That's what we ask our left wingers to do. So in terms of positioning, where we would potentially play him and what we're asking him to do, remember we've come very left triangle dominant, and then we sweep the ball through the half space in zone 14 to the right. So there is some suggestion in that kind of data he could do that. Off the ball, so he's operating over here in the left. Defensive actions are about the same as the right. It's probably more to do with the tactical setup of the team. So they're defending deep and breaking. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I will take on, he's in Buddy, isn't it? Could have looked up his defense. His physical data, but yeah, there's some elements to like. He's a different. I have to say, it's a different profile to what we've currently got, which is not a bad thing. I'm just saying he doesn't profile like Cody, doesn't profile like Diaz from looking at the data there, and he doesn't profile like Mo. So that might not be a bad thing, but it's a different kind of prospect. I mean, I don't know what the link's like on him. Is the data good? Is the link good?
Yeah, there is quite a lot of talk. There's quite I have to be honest as well, Bart. A lot of mainstream saying they expect him to leave the Bundesliga. There is a lot of interest, and maybe, just maybe, that he is an English youngster. He is an under 21 capped as well. You do wonder, has he been sort of flagged as a talent that way at the same time? That the bit I wanted to ask you about with him is, and an analyst, we talk about this, have mentioned that very much Mane, he came on our radar at Red Bull Salzburg, didn't he, with his sort of youth stats, like before Southampton, despite what people suggested. This guy, as a fewer flagged, seems to have more of an element of a Mane than a Cody or a Diaz. And we naturally know that Michael Edwards and his people, etc., were in for Mane from a young age, are interested that way. Do you think it could be more of that sort of Mane profile, like receive the ball high up, be devastating in the final third, off you go?
Yeah, definitely. That's probably not a bad example of what he can do, particularly because a lot of his output seems to be when he's not, he can carry the ball, but his receiving percentage are up. So yeah, it could be definitely that way, I would suggest. And the lad there, Midnight, Dortmund do have a good eye for it. Their scouting network is pretty exceptional. It's their whole model. They do look to scout young, get them right out of the academies, if you like, develop for themselves. I mean, Sancho, Bellingham, been two that have gone for over £100 million when they brought them for pennies sort of thing. So, and he said buttons there. That's proper old school. But I mean, this season here he's got a 35.9 top speed. That's very quick. That's quick. He's got sprints 395 in. I have to check how many starts he had. So where's his starts matches? I have to find out. Mid-90s 11. So yeah, he's top speed of probably sprints is about just over 30 miles per game, probably, which again is a good number to have for sprints. So there's definitely a lot to like in him. It would be the shot volume would be an area that would be against him. That's around that. It seems to have dropped off from a high of nearly approaching 4 to now just over the 2. Because if you look at that, it's about 11 starts, 11 90s he's got, and there's 28 shots there. So that brings it down even more per 90. So I would. That's the only thing I would be concerned. Is probably a bit harsh, but we want our wingers to have high shot volume, decent shot volume, because Slot's changed it from just shoot from anywhere to getting good position to have a shot, but that's what we do. But in terms of his physical data from Bundesliga side, there's nothing there that puts you off. In fact, that probably enhances the fact that speed is king as well. So I think there's a lot to like of him. You can see why he's just a different profile to where we are, and maybe returning to someone like Mane isn't a bad thing.
True. It's so you mentioned Dortmund. They fetch. Let's not pretend they fetch a pretty penny for everyone. Sancho, Bellingham. That is what they do. They pick these kids up from English sides, academies, and funnily enough, you mentioned certain players like Sancho. Bynoe-Gittens was a youngster at Manchester City, like Jadon Sancho was, and also you wonder with his contract, 2028 people. So even in the summer, he will still have 3 years left to go. So there is no discount really had for Liverpool. So interesting that we see there a different profile to what we see normally. However, this is not going to be a cheap purchase if we do pick him up. So one to keep an eye on. Another player who, let's talk attackers, Bart, before we go to the final one. I know you like this boy, Joao Pedro. Now, speaking of clubs that do sell for a pretty penny, we're talking Brighton. We're talking Tony Bloom. We know how good these are in the business. However, everyone is going to be astonished beyond belief if the same 6 attackers that are at Liverpool now season. So everyone's expected, and this is a player that a lot of people know has been linked with Liverpool quite heavily. Do the stats the link?
Yeah, I mean, this lad's certainly taken the eye of a lot of players. He's only played 1,000 minutes this season, though, in the Premier League. So, yeah, something to be aware of. He's 2.8 and 0.8 XG. If we just have a look at how he's done, I think Brighton, if I'm correct, the goal, shot, and creating action. So he's been at Brighton a couple of years. There's the stories he was at Watford, wasn't he? And he was learning how to be kicked effectively. That's no offense to any Watford fans watching. Good to see you. But it's good sometimes to learn those trades. So what have we got here? Shot creating actions per 90. He was in the Championship. He was getting about 3.6. First time in the Premier League, 4. But he didn't play any 22.90, so that's pretty good. And it just dropped off, so he's just below 3. So it's a whole shot creating action less this season. In terms of goal creating actions, he's actually increased that up from 0.48 to 0.52. Not a lot, but he's nudging it along. So that's an improvement actually over his seasons. So as the difficulty level of the league's gone up, he's actually increased his goal creating actions, which is what you want to see. That's not something you like, oh no, I don't want to see that. That's exactly what you want to see. Anything else to look at in terms of what's his shot volume? Just have a quick look for that. Shooting, total shots. So he's at 2 shots a game at the moment, and he was at 3 last year, 2.6. So it's a drop off a little bit, but maybe that can return up. It depends where we are. Shots on target about the same. So points around 0.8 is probably where he's at per 90. So not bad. I would suggest he's probably not. He's not an out and out, is he? He's not he's not a top. I know Brighton sometimes playing there, but he's not quite the. He's more. I think transfer committee pod when they did it said he's more of a 10. 10 if you like, a player as a 9, a bit like Bobby.
Yeah.
It's not Bobby, but I'm just saying. So he's got 2 profiles, which is always interesting. Because we're talking about him as a forward, okay, so we'll just look at him at that forward profile, then that changes things a lot. If you look at him compared to forwards, defensively, tackles and interceptions. So that suggests that he does a bit of the Diaz Núñez stuff of tackling you, but he also does a bit of the movement, blocking, passing lanes, and intercepting the ball. So he's 90% percentile for interceptions and 84% percentile for tackles. So that's pretty good, for a forward, considering we're looking at the youngster last night, and he wasn't anywhere near that for those. So that's not bad. If we're going to play him there, even if he's dropping in, helping out in that 10 area, particularly our shape is that U with the 2 dropping in, that's not a bad attribute to have. Now, what does he do in between the boxes? And this is a lot to like about this lad. All right. Yeah. This is passing and carrying. Typically when we do these, we say, well, this guy's carrying the ball. This guy's a passer. This guy is doing both out of all the metrics here. The only one that isn't in the 90th percentile is progressive passes received. All right. Which again, it's still 85th. I mean, it's still better than the previous lad. So it's just that shows you where the position on the pitch he can be. So if he's playing high, he's not going to get as many, but he's still receiving a good amount. So, and there's not really a big difference between progressive carries 94 percentile, progressive passes 93rd. Well, they're both, however you're trying to use the ball, you're moving it closer to goal by 20%. So this is a good place to be. Shot created actions 86 percentile. That's very good. What exception?
Yeah,
high 80s, 3.2 a game. He's creating an opportunity for us to take a shot in 3.2 times a game. 3.2, sorry, a game. Non-penalty XG is on the low side for a forward. Yeah, his shots total again. I said it earlier on. He's only taking 2.6, and that's dropped off. He was at 3 last year. It's come down a whole shot a game, so he's in 56 percentile. So, yeah, but his assist 90th. His expected assist 85th percentile. But yeah, I think there's probably midnight there. He's a good player in a. I wouldn't say Brighton were a terrible team, but they could potentially see him taking up positions that would you get higher quality opportunities to create for us in the final third. And there's been criticism in the past of some of our forwards where Mo has created an opportunity and the player has been in the wrong place, not but the ball played from Mo was perfect. It's just the guy didn't make the run, so it doesn't look great for the stats. It's not his fault. So comparison just for Jota, he's not quite where you'd expect, but then Jota's more of a 9 than a creative type. So, but it's not bad. It's just not. It's coming along. If we let's look at where he's picking the ball up. So where is he performing for Brighton? It's just a game I picked up for Brighton. But this is where the comment there, are they a poor side? So we're used to passing networks. They have a lot of volume, great pitches, all these kind of things. But here he's not well linked. It's not a great structure. So it's quite impressive in those elements that he's actually creating the output. He is in roughly the areas we'd expect our 9 to be in, which is in that double 10 area. So that's something to be pleased about. And he's actually creating, almost 10 passes every 15 minutes for Brighton. Not bad. And he's got 6 or 7 passes in the areas that we'd want him to be in, which is half spaces and zone 14. So yeah, I think that's some good attributes there. If we look at off the ball, which is often where your likes of Bobby, if you were going to go that way, made his mark. And in the areas where you'd be expecting him, he's 7% there, which is higher than the left and the right. So that's good to see. Brighton kind of typically play a bit of a medium block, if you like. So, but he still operates and does his fair share of the front 3 defensive actions. So, yeah, I'd say there's some bits I like. I do particularly like, as I said, I think there's a lot to like about his ability to create. So if he was part of puzzles where they were changing the wingers, I don't know, if you were changing slightly the dynamic of the front 3, then you could see why you'd want a creative player in the centre. Because as we said last night, Jota's not great at build-up. He's brilliant in the box. He does your hustle and bustle, wins the ball, but he's not great in terms of their creation. So this could be an interesting alternative there. But he's not going to be cheap, is he?
Not going to be cheap for 1 second. I mean, a contract till 2028, and we have to remember, if we do go in for this guy, we are negotiating with Brighton and Tony Bloom. So yeah, that is going to be a nightmare to start with, and we know you're not going to get any favourable payment terms. And I did want to ask you, Bart, it's interesting that these 2 names have come on the block. We looked at Zimas last night, and very much we could see the traits of Jota and Nunes in Zimas. You could see he's a number 9. If it was to be Pedro and the links do get stronger, is that almost telling you, like a bit like the transfer committee maybe mentioned, closer, and it's wrong to compare him directly, but closer to Bobby, i.e. looking at a different type of forward, having that variety more than anything?
Yeah, 100%. So that's a comparison there I put on screen of Pedro and Zimas, and they're almost peaking in the opposite areas of each other, if you know what I mean. So, yeah, I would. it seems so. If you link that also to the last guy, like Gittens, who's a different type of profile, if he actually is going to be a bit like Mane, and you're linking him with someone like Pedro, then you could start to see a bit of a rebuild of the classic front three we had, right? Which was the false nine dropping in and two wingers who would or wide forwards who would put their effort in, but fundamentally would get you the goals. That would make sense to me. If we're going for more of a Zimas profile, then it would suggest that you need a bit more out of both wingers in terms of creativity to give Zimas the chances to use his high shot volume and his finishing ability. Yeah. The only thing to note with Zimas is he's got very low career numbers, all right? I know people are getting really excited about him, and there is a lot to like about him, but he hasn't played a lot of minutes. Whereas you look at someone like Pedro, he's played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 seasons. His minutes have gone up, each season. He's hit around 1,500 minutes, apart from one season, first season in the Premier League with Watford, where he only played 25. Probably he was only a kid when he came over, but he's played a substantial amount of minutes. Given he's on just over 1,000 after 14 match starts, he's probably on course to break his career high in terms of minutes played. So he's on the right trajectory towards minutes. But given that, you are going to pay a bit more of a premium for someone who's played that number of minutes in the Premier League and has got that kind of profile attacking. Whereas if you take a punt is a little bit harsh, but if you take a bit more of a risk, shall we say, with Zimas, he hasn't played a lot. The data profiles like there's something there, but the price has to be got really right. Otherwise, you're in a bit of a territory of, are you overpaying for potential? Whereas with Pedro, you might actually have, he's ready to go supernova. Whereas Zimas might not be going supernova for a couple of years.
True. And to be fair, I think you phrased it well last night, just in case anyone missed it. There's the two brackets. There are the players where we think they are very young and they've got talents. They could go on to that next level. So that's one they may target. There's a difference between the player, as you said, Bart, that's got 3 years or so data. That's where the term supernova comes in, that they're about to go up based on that sort of substantive minutes, that data sample. So, very much a different type of signing if it comes for Zimas to Pedro. So that will be interesting to see. And this man, I am so intrigued to see what you dish up here, Bart, because on the eye test, I like so much about this kid. You can forget your mountains. You can forget your Sociedad tit, who's going off to Arsenal, wherever he's going. This is the one that a lot of people are calling out. Now, people are going to start shouting that, yes, Brighton, yes, not cheap, difficult to negotiate with. And I'll do a little bit of my bit first, Barts, as well. 2028 contract, but Brighton have a year. So you can essentially call it 2029 because it's Brighton. And if he goes, they're going to demand top dollar, no two ways about it. However, I suppose when we do our normal stats run through, could Carlos Baleba demand top dollar?
Yeah, I think he was profiled on a recent transfer committee pod as well. And I think some of the height data isn't quite right for him. So I think he's actually sort of been listed online to just give people who look at that kind of data might get concerned. This season he's made 17 starts, just sort of 1,300 minutes. Okay, so probably in course for over halfway. So he's probably course for about just sort of 2,000 minutes. Not bad for a 21-year-old. If we scroll down the bottom, see what he's doing in some of his other standard. Where's his defensive actions? So tackles and challenges and blocks. So because of the way we play, you don't really want your six making the tackle, if you like. Tackle's like a last ditch thing. You generally want to block or intercept. So that shows you're blocking a passing lane by doing that, and you're winning the ball by still being standing. Yeah. So the things you want to keep an eye on are things like blocks. We talk about per 90. So blocks, he's coming and he's doing 1.2, 1.7 a game. Interceptions 1.9. So these are good. His interceptions has increased. His blocks have dropped off a bit, but still not too far off. And his challenges, He's got more refined, should we say. Started when he was playing in France, he was doing four tackles a game. He's now at 1.5. So he's refined his game a little bit as we come forward. In possession, what is he doing? Touches. Yeah, defensive third is where in middle third is where he's largely dominant. That's okay. And he's taking, but it's per 90. It's going to be, he's getting less to the touch a game in the penalty box. But again, probably what you want your 6 to do, to be fair. Call me old fashioned. Yeah. I want 6 sat in front of me centre halves, thank you. So that's generally what aerials, because that is important in that part of the game. Okay, so he is at 58% for this season, was 72 last season. So it's not bad. So he's got some good actions there. If we look at him as a usual kind of percentiles, this is for a 6 to be signing a defensive mining 6. Given that, okay, fair enough. Zubimendi looks like he's going away, and we might change our mind on that. I wanted Zubimendi in the summer. I think we both did. I think we saw him as ideal, but Grab seems to be doing that role. But Zubimendi was never going to be your defensive-minded 6, right? We said this in one of the TMMs with the number 3 or 4. We talked about the opportunity to get Tchouaméni from Real Madrid. For me, that's the 6 I would sign, because he gives you the defensive output that Grav can't currently do, and he'd also play well with Max. So personally, I think we might have shifted our profile to trying to find a 6 that can play well with Mac or Grav in a game where we need more physical, just defensive ability, shield in front of the back 4, and we can maybe be able to play Mac higher up. So those is probably what I'm looking. So what I'm trying, a long-winded way of saying it, apologies, Dave, is these bottom boxes here to be all green bar clearances is a good thing. So he's in 73rd percentile for aerials 1. That's good for midfielders. Blocks, interceptions. As I said, we want our 6 doing that rather than the tackles. And he's in 93rd and 97th percentile. So from a defensive side, this looks like a good option to be looking at for sure. On the ball, though, so his pass completion rate is 88th percentile. Good. Tick. Check. We want our midfielders to be in the high 80s generally. He doesn't attempt a lot of passes, though. So he's 32nd percentile. Progressive passes, that's not his game. That's 30th percentile. Clearly, that's not him. He would rather carry the ball. So he'd rather take a player on and carry it. So he'll carry it a bit like Grav does, to be fair. The famous Grav turn, which on half term, explodes out, is a carry, right? So there's a bit to think, okay, that's fairly similar to Grav, but with a bit more defensive now, should we say. As we said, I personally don't want my 6 showing up in these 2 metrics. Thank you very much, because it shows me he's too high up the pitch. I want him at home protecting the passing lanes to my centre halves, or either side of a centre half. Sorry. And therefore, his attacking metrics aren't going to be great because it's about opportunity. But what he does do for a 6, he's in 84th percentile, 4 shots taken for a 6. So that's not too bad. 64 for non-penalty goals. But in terms of assists and the rest of it, and he's not going to create goals from where he's playing. He's not getting further forward, so he's not going to take great goal creating action. So I think his profile is interesting. Could it do with a bit of refinement here and there? I would say you need to be a bit more. You need to be attempting a lot more passes playing for Liverpool than you would do for Brighton. We have a high volume of possession. You need to be doing that. That's not to say he can't do that, because clearly his pass percentage completion is high. But at the moment, he's not showing that. And there might be opportunity. He might not have the opportunity to do that. We look at his profile, though. So Grav, typically, there we go. Grav's on the on-ball side of things is higher because Grav is an 8. We've converted to a 6, right? So, but if you look at some of the aerials, tackles, blocks, and then aerials, tackles, blocks, and percentage of dribbler tackles. That's where Baleba actually outdoes Grav. But the profiles are quite similar. Okay, it's just that this guy seems to be doing a bit more defensively, so which is not a bad thing. So they could play well together, but typically if you're buying 2 players that play well together, you have the profile's a bit more extreme in terms of the difference. If we put Mac in here, for example, he would be all over this side of the profile and not so much here. So, yeah, I think there's some elements to like to him. I'm not saying no. I like the defensive side of him. It's just on ball. Is he good enough for a Liverpool 6? We looked at who was a lad at Atalanta, the 6 there. Edison. He was very good defensively, extremely good. His passing was higher than this percentile, so he attempted a lot more passes. They weren't very progressive, and his pass accuracy was good. So I'm just saying to you, if you look at the 6s we've been linked with high defensive numbers, they just need to maybe show a bit more on the ball. But we look at where does he appear for Brighton? Typically in the areas you'd expect. Passing is probably a bit harsh to show him up on, but he's there probably about 5-6 passes every 15 minutes. He's involved in very low and low, so he does do a bit of recycling for Brighton. It's not a bad thing to be doing. Again, we'd expect our 6 to be involved in that. No. Progressive isn't his thing, so we'll look at that. We look at off ball in his areas. So he is doing, let's have a look at Brighton's map here. So he's got 9 and 5 in his areas, which is probably the most dominant area on the pitch for Brighton's defensive action. So that's giving you an indication of what he can do in those areas. So yeah, I think there is a lot to like about him. I don't know where I've got Zeneman listed on the dial here, just to show you what I mean. But no, I haven't. We'll find out what it. Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot to snoke about him, but it's Brighton. I think the question you got to ask you is he good enough? Is he as good as the price Brighton are going to quote you? I would suspect, I don't know what you've seen, but I would suspect it's going to be about 50 mil. Is that going to be around that price?
It's going to be a lot more than that. A lot more than that are the suggestions. I mean, 2028 with a year. So essentially, call it 2029. Young, established Premier League player. Tony Bloom negotiated. I honestly suspect you are not going to see much change. I'm not saying it'll be Caicedo levels, Bart. I don't think it'll end up being 115 million, but I wouldn't go. I genuinely suspect the suggestions are much below the 100 million mark. You know, they're going to demand top dollar to let him go. Which that moves the dial a little bit. I'm not. Yeah, it's one of those, isn't it? We've chatted about which 6 we get and the rest of it. So he's an option. He's doing well. He's looking to get good minutes. He's got those he's progressing his minutes over time. His stats aren't getting better. He's getting more refined. There is a lot to like about him. As always, though, with a Premier League player, it'll come, particularly with Brighton, it'll come down to, is the price point, are we worth playing that, or could we go and find someone else for a little bit cheaper? And that's just the way FSG operate. Whether I like that or not is irrelevant. Yeah, it's the only other question I wanted to ask you about this kid, because obviously you mentioned combinations like Baleba and Gravenberch, and we talked Baleba and McAllister possibly on the different side. This kid is left-footed, which we don't have many left-footed. We don't have any left-footed midfielders, do we? We're sometimes screaming out in that. And people have referenced that. Does that change anything that he could give you a bit more balance being left-footed at all?
Yeah, for sure, because it would give us another option to play. I mean, pro players are generally good on both feet. You know, you and I kicking a ball with our wrong foot would be hilarious, right? But a pro player can generally pass the ball with his non-dominant foot. Whether they can shoot with it is another matter. You know, Cody and Mo are very dominant one side or another for shooters. But yeah, it would give us an option in terms of our passing. If you look at some of the faults of Endo, is that he turns one way and he can only play. Yeah, he generally plays one side of the pitch, which is it's just the way he is, and he's better. That's why sometimes you can see him better at centre half. He hasn't got the pressure, and he can play a bit more expansively from that. So yes, it could be an advantage in the right setup. It just depends how that marries up to where you are. It could be good. I do think his defensive numbers, they more than intrigue me. I think they're very good numbers for a side that are defensive. They're bit deep blocked. So yeah, it'd be intriguing. I think if the deal's right, probably would be a good. I think we need to sign a 6 in the summer. So yeah.
Yeah, we need to sign a 6 in the summer, and pretty much every 6 we've been linked to in the last 3 years or made a serious move for has fallen by the wayside. So yeah, there's a few people are commenting there. They like this kid, and interesting, there is a lot to like when we run the stats. So there we go, people. Bynoe-Gittens, Pedro, forwards link, wingers link, different profile to what we have. And if we do go that route, there is a lot to like. Baleba, the defensive stats, as Bart's called out, exceptional. They really are high. We're talking high 90s. Left-footed, that's a positive. A concern, maybe, just maybe, are the passing numbers. And this is where it comes down to. Is he an Arne Slot passing 6? Are the passing numbers where they need to be? And then ultimately, because you're talking Brighton, you're talking Tony Bloom, where is that price point, which may also be the key factor for Pedro? I suppose the only thing I did want to ask you to finish this bar, Baleba, we know he's been linked. A lot of people are calling this out as the one we should go for. And a lot of people, social media tonight, are going, well, Sod Zubi, like, if he doesn't want to come and all that, he's going to Arsenal. Baleba is the one to go for. I mean, ultimately, if the price point's right, if we do go for Baleba in the summer, would you be pleased on that signing based on the defensive and what he can bring in balance?
I think you would. That would be his second season in the Premier League. I think he should be. He's shown an upturn in a lot of those numbers. For me, he's not a bad 6. I don't think it would be a bad signing at all. I think the problem we have at the moment is that when Slot won't play, the alternative to grabbing the 6. So if you sign someone like this kid. Yeah. And Slot trusts him and he builds that trust and he plays, and that's better for me. You know, a player who Slot trusts and will play is more important than whether it's perfect or not. You know, we need another option in that midfield. We can't keep going forward with 4 midfielders next season. We just can't. We're just about getting away with it now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that there has to be an alternative there, doesn't there? So we'll see what that brings. But there you go, people. 3 recent links. It's important to say you can make your mind up. And there's some interesting comments in the chat panel. And yes, as Klopp says there as well, it is funny that Liverpool were linked with Baleba at 25 million at Lille, but here we are now, and here we are in this situation with 6s. So all it leaves me to say, as ever, is Bart, for the time, for the insight, and for running the stats, it is much appreciated.
Anytime.
And ladies and gents, that was another Transfer Market